right, why don't we call this meeting to order? I know it's 10:29.
Roll call.
Oh, yes, please.
Hines,
Here.
Bentley,
Here.
Toppers excused, Walker.
Here.
Good.
Okay, any comments to the report?
No,
All right.
no.
Approved then. All right. Oh, I have no report. So I have no report, so marketing task force report, please.
All right, so we had a meeting this week, and by the way, I continue to be impressed with the participants in that marketing task force, really quality contributions. So just to summarize from the meeting, the task force was very appreciative of the board passing and adopting the mission and vision statements, along with the brand name of Rossmore Walnut Creek. Ann Peterson reported that Rossmore Walnut Creek has been registered as a doing business as name for GRF. It was $55, I guess, but lasts for 5 years, so that's a good investment. The task force expressed the strong interest in resident-facing brand name changes to simplify things, especially for new residents, such as MOD. What is MOD? Well, it's Rossmore Property Management. Didn't necessarily adopt the name, but wants to continue that discussion as we try to brand name things within Rossmore for ease of, especially for new residents. Ann will report back on those ideas and any costs associated with other things associated with Rossmore Walnut Creek, and we'll see what that means. Ann presented findings from an SEO audit that helped to frame current website usage. In addition, the task force was provided with fresh data from a survey of 223 new residents to assist in focusing on buyer perceptions and motivations. By the way, 223 people responded out of 885, which is like a 25% response rate, and so valuable information. Nothing that surprising there, other than low website use, especially in finding properties. Word of mouth is the biggest, and just familiarity is the biggest way that people find Rossmore. So we view that as a big opportunity. That's what marketing is all about, is getting to people that aren't aware of Rossmore and making sure that they are aware. So our focus now is on our deadline of May and what can we accomplish in that time period. So we're focusing on low-hanging fruit to tackle meaningful recommendations with impact in the near term. So the following items were identified by the task force in that regard. Creating a marketing website separate from a resident portal. So myrossmore.com needs enhanced for user experience for residents, but a marketing task force that is aimed at prospective buyers and by the way, children of expected buyers, adult children. So that is two very important needs. Explore an ambassador program. That is viewed very positive by the task force, and we have some people very interested in that. Prospective buyer fact sheets, into making sure that realtors have the right information in their hands to present to potential buyers. A brand guide, which quite simply is just all the fonts and colors and logos that we use to be comprehensively put together so that anybody on the outside, such as realtors, are using the right items, expressing who we are, and designing a social media presence. Fortunately, we have our two Haas School of Business folks on the task force, and they're undertaking that initiative. So we want to anticipate a launch with all of these efforts and a press release at realtor or resident town halls later. And finally, action item from the task force was a motion passed to recommend to the planning committee that the 2025 capital projects list include $100,000 for website development for the marketing and My Rossmore sites.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? All right, can you talk a little bit more about the website and how you talked about having two separate ones, one for marketing and one for My Rossmore, and how that would work?
Yeah, so My Rossmore, I mean, the marketing website would most likely use the name rossmore.com or rossmorewalnutcreek.com or rossmorewc.com. We'll cover all our bases there. But that website is meant to be anybody who's searching for properties, 55 plus properties in America, actually, should land on Rossmore on that website there could be short videos of tours around Rossmore, the facts, all the pictures, maybe some blogs from residents about what life is like in Rossmore, what the cost is like in Rossmore. So it's meant to be an exterior facing marketing website to prospective buyers. And again, adult children of prospective buyers, which we find is a very fertile place, especially in the digital world. That's who's searching properties more even than prospective buyers in their 70s and 80s. Whereas My Rossmore right now, as you know, it's fairly limited in what it has to offer. It's more transactional with golf and events and things like that. But to be the place where residents go for whether it's property management services at MOD or golf reservations or some of the things that are currently there, but a much more focused on the residents and password protected. So it would only be for residents, not for outside folks to access.
Yeah, kind of right now, you can go, you go to myrossmore.com and you look up a lot of stuff about your mutual and that kind of thing. And then you go to My Rossmore for excursions and golf and things like that. And they're it's mixed together.
Yeah,
and so when you have someone from the outside looking in, there's a lot of information in there that you kind of have to know that you're, kind of have to be living here for a while to kind of understand what that's all about. And it's not really a marketing page. So that's why we're kind of thinking is take what we have to from here, incorporate that into My Rossmore, and then dissolve, and make this more of a marketing piece for people looking into it, looking at Rossmore.
And the goal there really is that right now we depend on realtors to do all the marketing for us, and they've developed their own messaging, which we have no influence over. And so we want to have a website that answers their questions as well as prospective buyers. And for realtors who are not with Rossmore Realty or the realtors who service exclusively within Rossmore. So we view that as a great opportunity.
So this might be a hard question. I don't know if you can answer it even, but of the 100,000, what would be the breakdown between the specific marketing versus the website that benefits our residents? Can ballparky?
The whole number is a ballparky, so you name it, we'll change it, but Jeff.
All right.
Yeah, we haven't gone out to seek proposals yet, as this was a discussion yesterday.
Okay,
Before
so this is a
yesterday.
guess, basically. I mean, an estimate,
Yeah.
an educated guess.
Yes.
And this would be in addition to everything we're already spending on
So we'll
nets?
go over that a little bit as we
All right,
get
when
into
you
the
get into the
capital.
budget, all right, because that's obviously the big question, is where's this gonna come out of the budget? So-
Yeah, so we'll address that when we get into the capital budget.
Okay, so we need a motion you'd like a motion then to, or should we do that when we get to let's do that when we get to
Yeah.
when we see where we can move the money around and then move it at that point? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so is that, any other questions? Any Zoom questions? No, okay, we're good. All right, let's go on to the capital project update.
So with capital, the main project that is in the works right now that's kind of continuing from 24 is certainly the pickleball project. We had a meeting with the city, with the public works director and the community services director to kind of, with our team, go over every little thing that's still outstanding. We've been frustrated, to say the least, in terms of what's been required, the pace of things, when feedback has been received. So we wanted to share that and see what we need to do to make sure we get things moving forward. The remaining items really, we need to complete a few tasks in leading up to the planning committee review. And so the next big step in the permitting process is to go before the planning committee. The main item that we still have to do is record the lot line adjustment. That's one of the areas where we've kind of been in dispute a little bit with, does it need to be recorded before going to planning, or is that a condition of a permit? Our argument has been that should be a condition because if you complete the filing and registering of the lot line adjustment with the county, then that's what you've got. And if the project doesn't go through, then you've got two parcels adjusted. But they contend that it is a condition of CEQA and if we didn't have it filed, then it would trigger the need to do further CEQA analysis. So we are progressing with the filing of that. We are tentatively looking at a March, hopefully a March planning committee date, pending on how long it takes for the county to complete the registration of that lot line adjustment. One of the pending items really is the relocation of the main irrigation line that feeds the Dollar Range course. So we're looking at trying to get that done as soon as possible before we hit the main irrigation season. So that's kind of a critical path as well. In terms of communication, we met with the neighbors of the property, mostly on Tice, but a few sprinkled from other locations. We offered to go over the sound study, the permitting process, the design, and meet specifically with the neighbors to hear and address their concerns. One of the critical components was many of them were going off of the original sound study and the information contained in that prior to what the mitigation measures are that then address those sound findings, and then thus the follow-up sound study. So hopefully having some updated information from the sound study was valuable. We then now have a community town hall scheduled for March 3rd at 11 o'clock at the event center. And the purpose of that is to go over all the parameters of the project, address both the aesthetics of it, the use of it, the funding of it, all of those items. And we'll be doing that on March 3rd. The other capital projects, yes.
So we can't go out to bid until approval by the planning commission, right?
You can, but you run the risk of engaging in a contract and then having it significantly change. So we may go out to bid before we get final permit, but we probably should at least get through.
Yeah, because how does that affect timing on the project?
It depends on if there's any conditions we need to resubmit. If there's really limited conditions, we should be able to progress to seeking bids fairly quickly.
And then it depends on contractor availability, right?
A lot of factors. We potentially have tariffs now and all kinds of things that may influence, what kind of bids and availability of contractors. Right? So,
And what's the window for moving that irrigation line up until?
we want to move it as soon as possible.
Yeah,
We'll probably do that as a separate item, not associated with construction.
And just move it anyway? Okay.
Is that a permitted thing? Does that have to have a permit?
I think that would require a permit.
It's just relocating the pathway.
Okay.
So your best guesstimate on a timeline for construction?
Well, if things go well, hopefully we can get bids back and get before the board for award of a bid in a construction phase budget sometime in May, hopefully by the end of May, and then start after that. Contractor availability, complete contracts.
I know.
It's a lot of factors at play.
So possible for completion this year?
Possibility. That's what we're hoping for.
Okay. All right, any questions? All right, let's move on to unfinished business, and Jeff, if you could give us an update on transit.
So there is a lot going on behind the scenes with transit, but just to give you a little update on current status. Right now, we still have 5 drivers. We have 1 additional that is out on leave. And then we have 2 vacancies. We have been recruiting for those vacancies for, it seems like a very, very long time, but we still have those 2 vacancies. We still do not have weekend service, but we are operating Monday through Friday. The Rossmore Fund has really stepped up to assist with weekend service and after-hours service. They have what is called the Easy Rider program, where they are reimbursing residents the full cost of a taxi or an Uber or Lyft ride. So basically you schedule the ride, you pay for it, and then you submit for reimbursement. It has to take place within Rossmore or the city limits of Walnut Creek and occur on Saturday and Sunday between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So basically when our service is on suspension or they would step in. So great program, take advantage of that. They have extended that for the full year of 2025.
Jeff, do we know what the participation is in that?
They have had some participation, still limited. So there's definitely capacity for more.
That's fairly new, just coming out.
They just started it in December, leading into the holidays.
So it needs to get known.
Yeah, build a little bit.
Yeah.
We still have the GoGo grandparent option, which is the subsidized rideshare with Uber, Lyft. We pay the first $10 of a one-way trip, so a max of $20 a day. So that's still an option. We are working with our consultant, East Fartherlings. They had a bit of a late start. This is a single individual that is providing some consulting. The things we're really exploring with them are industry trends. What is the whole kind of look of transit these days with, you know, we have so many options that didn't exist when we were at our peak that exist now. What types of structures are other communities going with? What are the options? So industry trends, recruitment and staffing, again, service model, equipment. We've been using the type 2 cutaways now for many, many years. Is there something more efficient, more appropriate for the size and number of riders we have and the type of service we're offering now?
And Jeff, a type 2 cutaway is the bus.
Oh, that's the bus.
That's the
we
bus,
use now.
right?
Sorry.
Which
Yes.
also require a certain license.
That
correct?
requires a type B passenger with a passenger endorsement. So if you go with the van, then you drop that requirement. Maybe that helps with recruitment. So a number of things going on with that. Some other things in the works that we've also been exploring. County Connection operates Route 1, which goes from the shopping center down to BART and then continues on to Kaiser and Shadelands. But it also is kind of the hub. There's the downtown trolley that leads from there every 20 minutes and cycles downtown. So really exploring what is our need to go downtown? Can we just use that as our hub and connect? That runs every hour. Exploring with them, what is the option for them to bring that bus in here and make a loop through Gateway? So we don't even go to Safeway. So there might be more of a partnership in what that looks like. CCTA is the ones that have the grant for the autonomous shuttles out here. That is really a demonstration program, not intended to boost service, because if you look, there's, you know, the only people really riding it is their other employees. But that will end here in the coming months. But there is some opportunity to expand that and look at different types of equipment still along the autonomous vehicle type equipment. There's a program in Martinez that uses a shuttle van that is autonomous. All of these still have an operator within them, but looking at those types of partnership still with them, and there seems to be some interest there. So there's a lot going on, but right now we're still operating with our limited staffing and hours.
The Martinez one isn't that running like a dial-a-ride kind of a thing? You call
It is
it,
similar
it
to
comes
a
to your house
dial-a-ride.
and takes you to dentist or doctor appointments, things like that.
Yeah, there's certain restrictions on who can use it and how, but it's open within the community, and it is a dial bus.
So what's the goal in terms of timing for some study results?
So we are looking to get a report with recommendations out in the coming months, and then wrap up some of those other partner options at that same time frame. And then we'll do a full report out to the committee and then ultimately the board.
So what is the usage of the bus now? I know that it's since COVID, things have changed. Before COVID, it was nothing, just, we had buses everywhere and we saw a lot of people in them and stuff. Now, you don't see very many people in the buses. And in fact, I can go a day without seeing a bus running. I'm sure they're out every day, but where I'm at, where I used to, before COVID was different. It seemed that they got a ton of usage, and then when COVID hit and we could only allow 1 or 2 people on the bus at a time, and it kind of seems to have stayed, with that 1 or 2 people on the bus, and they're 33 seats?
There's 12 to 16 seats max, and there is 1 to 2 wheelchair spots. So they're pretty limited capacity. They're not that large. During our peak in, say, the 2012, 2014, 15 timeframe, we were operating up to 5 fixed routes throughout the valley. We had pretty much all of the main streets covered, including all the way up to Horseman's Canyon. If you go back and look at the data then, we had routes that were well utilized and ones that weren't. So the Rossmore up around Hillside and this side of the valley was better utilized. We started to cut back on some of the lines. We did a transit study that really recommended to boost efficiency and more reliability for people to start transitioning to dial-a-bus. So we were just starting to do that when COVID hit. Ridership has definitely picked up significantly since 2022, 23. So we regularly have buses that have multiple people on them, but a lot of it is more direct service rather than you're picking up a lot of people. That's why we're looking at the type of equipment that we're using to be more efficient with a max of 4 people in that.
Is there anything that might lead to more convenience? Because it's not convenient right now.
That would be the goal of using a different type of vehicle. You can get in and out of entries much easier. You can be a lot more direct and efficient. That's also part of what type of dispatch we have that works within this community and so forth. So can you hail like you do an Uber or Lyft ride type of service?
Do we have specific areas that seem to get more attention than others, such as
Definitely.
right here
Oh, definitely.
and then Safeway and the gym? It's not uncommon to see people sitting on the bench waiting to get on the bus at the gym. And so that seems like a destination point rather than one that would include like something at the event center or something at Sportsman's Park or something like that. So do we know, like?
Yeah, we know where our hubs are and where your key spots are.
Back to weekend service. I just feel a little troubled that we're counting on charitable contributions to Rossmore Fund to provide a service that GRF normally provides. Is there any thought to perhaps working with the Rossmore Fund to see what that usage is like over time and potentially reimbursing them? Or because there are savings by not having drivers.
Sure.
And And I'm just troubled that coupon money is not being used for that service.
We should state that coupon money is not going to anything else. So it's not being redirected or funding any other priority.
Right, right.
That's important to get out there. The weekend numbers, even prior to, pretty limited. It was, we had 1 or 2 buses on the road at a given time. So demand for weekend service fairly limited. But if it's an interest to take this over or to reimburse the Rossmore Fund, we can look at what that would be in terms of usage.
Maybe we could just if they wouldn't mind giving us a report of what usage is like.
I'm sure they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can discuss it.
I mean, you have to keep in mind too, that for the most part, people's medical appointments are not gonna be on the weekends.
Right, right.
They're gonna be during the week, so this is a pretty isolated type of service.
Right.
Is there any data that shows or that can tell us how often Uber or Lyft comes in here to service some people? So some people who might not use the dial-a-ride, we don't know that they're using Lyft unless they're kind of giving us that information. Is there a way we can tag that at the gate and just say, oh, an Uber car came? I'm not sure I'm really specific about
Yeah.
where they're taking them, but somebody's calling an Uber for something.
I don't know if we have that or can collect that
Yeah.
specific. I know one of the challenges with that mode of transit is not, if you're traveling, say from your residence to the fitness center, it's hard to get an Uber or
Oh,
Lyft
yeah,
because they don't want to come in
Uber's
here.
not gonna wanna do that.
Mile trip.
Not gonna-
I was thinking about the outside stuff, because I know that people use it for when a mark to take a trip. They'll get the Uber, Lyft to take, or it'll take them to the airport or whatever. But I mean,
Yeah.
I was just wondering how many Uber Lyfts come in and go out of Rossmore, if there's any kind of a way we can get
Yeah,
that
I'll
number.
check if there's any way to.
Just to see because maybe people are just going that way without telling us, which makes the dial-a-ride number go down, because they say it's easier to do this. I mean, it's so easy, you pop it on the app and within a second, somebody says, I'll come and get you, and
That's why we want to also look at kind of trends, because the transit industry has definitely shifted.
Sure,
There are
sure.
so many different options, privatized options that there just didn't exist before.
Mhm.
So, what should Rossmore be offering?
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
is
that's
that?
kind of
Yeah,
what I
I
was
think
going
that's
for.
the bigger question.
But I think we need to know that number. We need to know how many are actually using.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you're not gonna be able to separate out the number versus
Or the destinations,
purposes or,
yeah.
right, destinations.
I'm not
but-
sure, I'm not sure what you do with that information, quite
Yeah, it
honestly.
gives you
Well, it could be,
all of
if it's showing a trend in the direction that it's going, then that's good.
You don't know if you're going out to dinner or out to the airport.
Mary has a question.
Oh, thank you. Mary has a question.
No, I was gonna make a comment. If you go to GoGo Grandparent or to some extent Lyft, that data is all in their system, so it should be retrievable by address.
Yeah, we can
That-
report how many people are utilizing the subsidy program through
Yeah.
Rural Grandparent.
Yeah, we have all
We
that
have
data.
that data for sure, but in terms of people just calling
Yeah, I
up,
don't even know.
scheduling an Uber or Lyft and how many are coming through the gate, I don't think we separate that out, but
Okay,
I'll ask.
all right. Anything else on transit? Okay. Let's move on. Okay, food and beverage. I know we have a town hall coming up February the 25th, I believe.
February 25th, 1 to 2:30 at the Event Center. We'll have our consultants from Synergy there to present their findings from the initial scope of their study. This is really kind of a culmination of all the outreach that they have done through the survey, through the individual stakeholder interviews, through the discovery tour that they did with a number of you and some other folks. So they will be going through kind of all of the scope that they initially had that was kind of the evaluation of the community, evaluation of trends, and then based on the surveys, based on the input, they'll be talking about what the outcomes of their findings are, what the opportunities may be. This will all lead up into their overall delivery of their report. And their reports then should include completion of all their deliverable tasks, evaluation of the Creekside Grill lease, the current lease, and recommendations for new lease terms, advisory documents for expanding food service in Rossmore, and they'll follow that with a presentation to this committee and to the board. So starting to wrap up their initial study, which would then lead really into what the next phase might be in terms of how do we incorporate what is going on at Creekside and that lease into the next phase. So,
Well, Danny and
yes.
what's your name?
Mandy.
Danny and Mandy.
Danny and Mandy.
Yeah.
So they will be on site.
Yes.
Are we meeting, is the planning committee meeting with them post town hall?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. we
I don't
can
know if
talk
that's
about
scheduled.
that.
I will find out.
Okay.
All right, any questions
Yeah.
further on that? You have.
Some of the possible ideas that they showed us and where they could fit in Rossmore are pretty cool. Is the town hall gonna show what the possibilities are? Because we also need to maybe have a kind of an idea of what a time frame to put out all those possibilities are, because that could be a long time before we can get the finances in place to put the Peacocks or the Peacock Plaza
Yeah,
for.
I think they will be talking about vision and kind of capacity and concept rather than here's the specifics about this location. Because as you said, we don't have timing. We don't want to get people focused on when is that going to take place?
Yeah, that's what I was, that's what I was.
Right, that's
Specific, although we want to, talk about vision and options. So, but in terms of what you may see at Hillside or what you may see at, I don't think we'll get into that level.
With the last planning committee meeting, we said, we haven't shared the feedback from the
Right.
surveys and the focus groups, and we need to get that information in front of residents
This is,
so that they know the background of decisions that might be made. And
Yes, that's the purpose.
what
of
have
the
we
town
heard
hall.
from
Yeah, what we
you
heard
in our
from-
engagement?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But it would be good to have a meeting.
Yeah, I
If they
will,
can stay and having them in person, I think would be very valuable.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do the Zoom thing for that. Okay. So we will try to coordinate that. Yeah, I do too. All right. Are we ready to move to item C, 7C, which is the 2025 Trust Estate Fund Capital Project Budget?
Okay. So this is the ongoing tour of the capital projects. The board did adopt the budget for the machinery and equipment, so we have that component. And at their last meeting, we did a first reading of the proposed project list and project budget. And so we're kind of revisiting with each of the committees, starting with planning and finance and back to the board for final consideration. There are still several things in play that we really don't know about yet. We don't know what the final budget projection is going to be for the pickleball until we get that bid. We have Some discussion is still going on with the finance committee on how many sales are we basing the budgeting on? Is it 375? Is it 385? Is it 400? It's traditionally been 400 for a couple of years now. What I'm going to show you is based on 400. Is the membership transfer fee. It's at 13.5 now for this year. There's discussion going on. Should it be raised to some other amount? So some of those discussions are still taking place. But to start off, let's go to. It's not that one. 17 or 7A18.
Is that the cash flow?
No, that's we'll get to.
Capital project, yeah, that one.
Capital projects.
Proposed.
So this is the list, just to refresh everybody. As you look on the left-hand side there, the priority, either a 2, a 1, or a 3. We have the projects that are currently, most of the projects are ones that are currently in process. They have been funded for either a year or 2 years, and there's carryover into 2025, and there's some additional funding that is requested. The groupings where you have potentially some discretion, as they're not priority ones, would be the pavement program. Last time you took it down based on a recommendation from Ann and Martine to 900,000. There is the building finishings replacement program at 85,000. Minor. The roof replacement, we pushed out to 26, but going to do the design work because that is an item where if we had to, because of a leakage or something, we could tarp that one. The other discretionary item, if you move down into the major capital, MOD replacement is a priority 3. Really where we are right now on that is continuing the study and evaluation of opportunities and options with that. And that funding there comes from the reserve, the set aside that we have from when the last one fell out of escrow. So we had $1.4 million. We're using that funding for any additional work that we do related to this item. So even though it's a 3, that funding source is kind of a separate stream than our MTFs. The food and beverage one, this comes up quite a bit, is we have 200,000, and that is not to pay consultants. We get asked that a lot, is what are we doing with 200,000? Because it's been in the paper that this is proposed. That's kind of a placeholder at this point. There will be some additional consultant work on phase 2 as we move into how we're gonna implement and what work is remaining, but that is really kind of a placeholder at this point, a little undefined. The lawn bowling greens, we put in 40,000 to evaluate that and look at opportunities. We'll work with the lawn bowling club as we progress through that, but really not looking at anything substantial until further down the line. The rest start to fall into priority 1 options, and these are mainly ongoing projects. So the lake liner, continuing with the study, a lot of that is carryover from this year, which didn't really get to. The NetSuite implementation, of course, is ongoing. This is where I would like to plug in the website, and I'd like to just add the website to the existing funding there of 544 instead of adding additional funding. Already part of that was going to be software that would really influence my Rossmore and be part of that. So we're looking at additional marketing website cost. I think we can fit that within the NetSuite implementation budget. But if we get down to later in the year where there's some costs that have exceeded, we'll come back to you and talk about that. But instead of adding an additional 100,000. I think right now we'll work with that line item and just adjust the description. If that's acceptable.
That'd be
That
awesome.
would be
Yeah,
great
that'd be
if we
great,
can do
yeah.
that, yes.
So we're not gonna, so the name will just be the NetSuite info.
It's a very generic name, but we'll
yeah.
add under the kind of the description that also is.
That
is
will
for that.
include the
design.
website. Okay, I like that. That's
Yeah.
great. We don't have to.
The golf bridge is, we plan on progressing that based on kind of the regulatory stuff. Hopefully we can get that into construction, or maybe it'll wash away today.
Don't
It has
wish
9
for
to
that.
choose from, whichever one is gonna pick.
The golf pump replacement, that's actually in progress right now.
that's
Solar
expensive.
phase 3 would be tied to the new pickleball project, so that's a little bit of a placeholder.
Mhm.
We do need to replaster the pools at Tice. That's a carryover from the current year where we weren't able to execute the contract. The entry control facility generator, it's actually there. If you, on your outbound, you'll see it right, tucked right up against the building. It's actually in place now.
That's a
Great.
question I had,
So
that
that's
it's still
finished.
on here, and I saw the new generator sitting there, and I thought,
Yeah, so it'll,
I know we don't have, our numbers are still a little bit, have a little bit of a lag. Did that come in on budget? I mean, is that,
I don't have the
we don't have
final
that?
cost.
Okay,
um,
sorry.
So I didn't receive either way.
Okay,
Then we get into priority 2 with the median turf replacement for the final phase. And then the remaining items start to move out towards 2026.
Mhm.
That's the list of items that you have to consider. And then if we can go to consent
Yes,
A19.
question from Dwight.
So, in terms of priorities, let's just assume that the NetSuite implementation goes over budget. I mean, there are some items that I think priority-wise that could be moved down. And one of those would be the lawn bowling, $40,000. We have that as a priority 2. I think that could be easily moved to a 3.
Well, I would disagree because I think that that's gonna save us a lot of water. We already took that equipment out of the budget, to save money there. For now, I would like to leave that as it is and let's see what happens with NetSuite. We'll
I will
deal
tell
with that
you,
when we come to it.
just based on capacity, that's not something we'll probably engage in until the fall anyway, so we'll
So it'll
have
be
some
there.
better idea
Yeah.
of
All right.
where things are.
when you say engage with, is that just doing the study, doing
Just
the
the-
preliminary work?
Yeah, that's all that's contemplated funding wise, is to start the evaluation.
Right.
I think that's spread over a couple of years.
Yes.
Okay.
So then even the roof replacement program, it's only 25 grand. Again, it's the study in 2025, but is that really a priority 1 in terms of
Well,
how we look at these projects?
That's the
that's
skylight,
the
right?
gym those are the skylights. of the
Yeah,
gym.
so that's the,
From when
Yeah,
when
and
that place is built.
I mean,
that's the
eventually
design
those are
work.
gonna leak. And that's gonna cause a lot of problems if
But
they
in
start
20
leaking.
I know, but my point is in 2025, is that really a priority 1? If push comes to shove? I don't know.
I would have to defer to people that are have much more expertise with roof issues, but I would hate to see that start to leak and,
I would
Let's
think
have it at
we
the
want to
gym.
be prepared to move on that.
Yeah.
Rather than get delayed with evaluation.
again, let's,
That is also since it is something that we're gonna be possibly changing if we got a design review on it, that's a permitted
Is that
project, so we
permitted?
have to go through the whole permit. So
That's
it
not something
it might
you-
stick out there for a couple of years before we can even get to it.
That's not quite the length. There's different levels of permitting that you go through. That wouldn't require design review and planning committee and all of that. That would
If
just
we
be.
change the way it's gonna be from those
Yeah,
old-fashioned
even,
peak things to a more of a flat or.
even that shouldn't trigger that level. Okay, so what we have up here next is the cash flow, and this is a snapshot in time. We are still working through getting financials for November, December, and then close out. So some of the things, as Dwight pointed out the other day, we have an item in here, other miscellaneous revenue at 1.1 million, and that ongoing, that is really, should be more around 500,000-600,000, I believe. This is based on, again, 400 sales. This last year we came in at 399. We don't know what the market's gonna be. There is quite a bit of debate. It's based on 13,500 for the MTF. There may be some discussion on adjustment of that. And again, we don't know exactly what some of these big projects, especially the pickleball, is gonna come in. That's we believe a good number based on some preliminary bid work, but you know, it could come in slightly different than that.
Well, we don't know what steel is gonna be now.
No, we don't know what the building supplies are gonna be.
So this is, again, reflects kind of the list that we just went over. Some of the items certainly we don't get to as soon as this is approved. We're not out spending all of those dollars. These projects are rolled out and typically will go over several years. So even if the pickleball project does get awarded, the likelihood of all of that getting paid out in 2025 is pretty limited. That probably will stretch into 26, but yeah, maybe not. But happy to answer any questions. When we go to finance, we will have the miscellaneous revenue updated. We will have by then kind of the closeout of 25, so we'll have a little bit better numbers in terms of what's fully been expended for the ongoing projects and what we need to carry forward into 25. So we're at.
Okay, so at the finance committee, we'll have better numbers, number one, and we'll have some further discussion about the number of unit sales and also the MTF that's gonna be levied. So that should give us a little better picture. With that in mind, any questions or motion to maybe move this along?
For your committee, as Dwight was just engaging in, it's a little bit of, is there any change in prioritization that you want to consider moving forward if we need to make an adjustment at some point in the year?
So just from my standpoint, I know I'm stepping on the finance committee a little bit, but I'm very comfortable with the 400 in terms of MTFs. We were at 399 last year in a horrible year. It should be fine at 400. I do think that miscellaneous revenue should be in that 5 to 6 range, which means that we're about $500,000 off, which means in terms of our cushion or our anticipated unexpected repairs is off by what, about $500,000. So, you know, that is where I was going. If finance committee comes back even more conservative and the board needs to say, all right, what do we hold off on? I think we need to take a look at some of the priorities. Because Jeff, I don't think you want to come back to planning again next month.
No, not with this again.
But we need to get moving.
We need to
here.
move this forward. And I think like last year, a lot of these things, you know, we've got budget versus actual, obviously. And the actual expenditures are in many cases going to lag. And therefore we have the ability to massage this a little bit in the future. My personal opinion is we should just get this moving forward.
I agree with that, but I think there might be some projects that we say, all right, these projects, if we have the funding come the second half of the year, we can move ahead with them. Otherwise, we need to hold.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what were those?
I would put the 25 grand in reefer replacement, roof replacement. And I would put the lawn bowling, 40 grand in that category. I would hope NetSuite implementation comes in lower, but we don't know.
A significant one, and especially in terms of timing and kind of the ability to decide when you want to move on that, is the golf bridge replacement. And we can continue with the process and the permitting and all of that, but you know, when we pull the trigger to actually go out to bid, it can certainly be a little more fluid. We don't want to do it during their peak season, so you're likely looking at later in the fall anyway. That might be something that we really consider. Where are we when we decide on that?
Maybe that's.
I would
maybe
be
that's-
much more comfortable with that. I defer to golfers, but
Well, let me ask you, Jeff, I mean, you were joking when you said it might get washed out today, but I mean, what is the status of the safety of bridges that we're talking about here?
So they're designed to have water go over the top of them, right? That's
Yeah.
what they're supposed to do. We have the ongoing erosion issues with a few of the sites. But I don't think they're to the point where it's a safety hazard. I don't think the bridges themselves, which are, you know, poured in place concrete, are gonna go anywhere. So is it something we definitely want to progress? Because we've got a number of them, yes. But timing wise, it's probably gonna take us still a while to get through all the regulatory stuff. And then we'll have a window in which we can complete it, which is gonna be dictated by Fish and Game and all of those folks anyway. So I think we're in pretty good territory.
So we
Progress with
You could
study.
even
So
get,
we could-
It could be next year, though. It could be 2026 after we get through all the people, when we get done with everything. It could be an environmental timing issue that we can't do it now, and we're in 2026 before we even have to look at that.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, that would make sense because we've got all those regulatory agencies.
The only time something like this is going to be an issue, and it's not an issue as far as failing of the bridge, is if you have a group of golfers out there and then we have some kind of spontaneous rain event. It's happened to me before when I was out there.
Like a flash flood.
Like a flash.
Well, a lot of rain, yeah, and especially in winter when it's already soaked. Like the ground is pretty wet right now, so a lot of this that we got last night, the 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, just ran. And so that can happen. And I've been on Creekside playing golf when we got caught in a rainstorm on we finished playing I got a birdie on that hole.
Ted.
But
To the point.
we finished playing.
We're
but
happy for you.
The rain came down so hard.
Yeah.
The two bridges around us flooded over the top. So we just had to sit there.
Okay, so you had to wait.
My concern is that there are people out there who feel they don't have to sit there.
Okay,
And so that's when we may have an issue. And so, I mean, I'm sure that there's been, that happened before. Mark could know more about that kind of a thing, but that's when we have the issue, is that's the reason, there's two reasons to redesign them. One is to make them safe for all of the people who are utilizing it. And the other thing is environmentally, they're the way that when they overflow, they on the back side of them, on the other side of it, it
They
flows
erode.
around and it just eats away
Yeah.
the side of it. So it's two issues. But as far as the safety thing, it's gonna be someone making that decision that I can drive over that. And it happens, you get caught in the middle of it, and you should just stop and wait.
Mhm.
So maybe we could recommend approval of the capital budget with the bridge replacement program being contingent upon adequate funding in
Okay.
the second half of the year.
That would work.
Would you like to
I
So
just-
moved?
I-
You-
I-
that's so moved.
I just moved that.
Do I have a
I'll second.
second? Did you get that?
Pretty much.
Do you want a repeat?
Yeah, can you just read it one more time?
So I would move that we recommend approval of the capital projects listing as provided, except the bridge replacement program of $672,000. Will only move forward contingent upon adequate funding in the second half of the year.
So we'll progress with the planning portion still. So there'll be
Yes.
some expenses,
So
but the
the-
construction, the main expense,
Okay.
that's all
You
right.
want me to revise
Oh.
the 600,000? Leave 72,000 in?
Yeah.
Or, okay,
All right.
so 600, strike the 672 and make it 600.
No, well, we have 600 in.
We have 672, right?
No, because we got carryover. To the
But we still
carryover.
have to approve the full 672.
Okay, all right. I wouldn't forward that.
672 or 600? What number am I putting in?
600, okay.
And that gives us enough for the
I think so.
permitting. Okay, all right. So I guess roll call.
Hines,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Okay, so approved. Thank you. Now we're moving on to new business and Jeff's going to give us an update on the options for the replacement of the mutual MOD offices and GRF
So
administration.
just, I wanted to restart this conversation a little bit with you because we haven't brought it back to you for a little while. There's been a process in evaluating the medical center as a potential home for MOD and GRF administrative offices. The whole project really started with identifying MOD replacement as the #1 goal over the next kind of 10 years of major capital projects that need to be completed. That was part of the facilities master plan process. So the first step we did, we evaluated the existing medical center property, did some space analysis, did some analysis of the existing plant, what would need to be replaced, especially the foundation, if it's sliding. And David from ELS has done some presentations to you in regards to the space and how that can be allocated to fit not only MOD, but all of GRF administrative facilities. And then the next step we went through was really to evaluate a total of 3 options in looking at, what is possible, what is most cost effective. It included looking at the existing site of MOD, doing a tear down and replace of that site. Looked at doing a ground up build in the upper RV lot area, or renovating the medical center as we just discussed. And really they looked at kind of space that would be needed and real rough cost estimates. In that analysis, we included what it would take to add about 6,000 square feet here at Gateway of programmable space, because one of the goals is to relocate and centralize a lot of the GRF administrative stuff to free up space down here. So there's a lot of factors at play here that really influence the direction of this. So today I'd like to get a little feedback from you, see if there's any other factors that you identify you want to bring into this so we can come back to you with a pretty comprehensive report. I think some of the goals that we're talking about certainly is to replace the existing MOD building. That facility is beyond its useful life. There's a lot of issues that need to be addressed in that building. So we need to keep that in mind. There's a goal of consolidating GRF and MOD into kind of one location. There's benefits from an operational standpoint, but also from a resident interfacing standpoint of having all of our operations in one spot.
The marketing task force would call that the Rossmore Community Headquarters.
Yes, Rossmore Walnut Creek Community Headquarters.
Thank you.
Resident facing,
Doing
we can
business
drop the
as.
WC, go ahead.
Decided.
And then there's also the goal of creating programmable space here at Gateway, especially as we've talked about the food and beverage study. You know, where would that go? What could it look like? You know, how could we repurpose some areas? So if
Just
there's.
interrupt for a second. So the room reservation effort that has been monumental, one of the benefits to that whole process is actually determining room usage, right?
Usage and
We'll have a
demand.
much better,
What kind of
Right,
space?
and that goes into that whole objective, right? Perhaps more meeting room space, et cetera.
Right. So if there's any other goals that we want to include in that, be good to identify. Some of the factors that are influencing this whole thing, certainly cost and funding. You know, what are the cost of each options and what are the funding sources that we can use for those projects? I think somebody already has written in the paper once about the palace of $18 million that we're considering. You know, what is reasonable to even consider and put before the community in terms of a major project? And then secondly, how would we fund? What are the options to fund that? The medical center, we need to really determine the value of that property as an asset ongoing in terms of our existing loans, our capacity to use it as collateral in the future or currently. If we did sell it, what does that do in terms of our ability for future? What is the value of it if it is sold? So a lot of factors involved in that. The existing MOD campus in general, what are the options up there for it serving both as a courtyard and as an administrative facility? Can we look at it and separate those types of things? There's parking, there's access because East Bay Mud owns the right of way to the upper RV lot and corporation yard that's up there. So utilities. So what is the capacity of that existing space? I have done some additional work with David with ELS and looking at what a two-story building at the existing site would look like, as well as what a site would look like at the upper RV lot, but also the upper employee parking lot. So we can look at some of that. And then considerations at Gateway, what is the need for additional space? Is it meeting rooms? Is it food and beverage? Is it other? What is the demand for that? So those are some of the parameters and different key things I think we want to put together in a report. So it'll help us as we start to make decisions on what the next steps should be. But I wanted to get feedback from the committee if there's additional factors that I'm not listing here or goals that we want to identify.
So are we still looking at the MOD area as a possible rebuild? I thought we kind of talked about not doing that.
Well, I think when you start looking at cost, you have to keep it in consideration.
But to move, so right now, it's a congested area to be in. And again, I'm going back to the rain and the bridge situation and the drivers. You're gonna have those mixed in with all the other maintenance people that are up there all the time anyway. Plus, you're gonna have the addition, if we do decide to put everything on one location, you got the addition of all of the number of vehicles that are here would have to be put up there. If we do that up there, it's possibility that we have to expand. What are we gonna do? Is there a piece in there that talks about what are we gonna do with the RV parking? Because that might not be there. So we have to look for where that's gonna go. So I thought with looking at all that stuff, we thought MOT is maybe not the best choice.
So
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but I think we need to identify it as an option.
Yeah.
Because I think
Still
where
need
Jeff is going is that if there's value to the medical center site and we could sell it, which we were very unsuccessful in doing, and the market has not improved at this point in time, but 2 years down the road, that could be different. That could be a funding source that makes the current MOT site more desirable. I don't think so in my vision, but I think it's an option that we need to keep in at this point.
Design wise, there's a lot you could do in terms of options up there. Is it the most ideal because you have two different dynamics? No, but there is a lot you could do from a design perspective. Just for example, if you looked at a two-story, you could enter from the current covered parking where employees park, and then you have an RV.
Backside.
Oh,
You enter from there, you separate the two uses, and then you can fit size, but lot to think about.
So a two-story would be a ground-up situation. Have they thought about a ground-up situation at, I'm gonna toss out something there because I know there's a big
at-
flat spot at Terracanada and Gray Eagle, what's that street? Gray Eagle? There's a huge plateau. I know it's mostly fill. I know that we haven't, but has that been thought of as a place where it's got the room?
We haven't looked at that as an option or additional spot. I would think your cost would be significantly more because you're having to bring all the
Utilities
infrastructure
from-
Yeah.
from scratch, where at MOD,
parking.
There's not enough parking there.
you'd have to
It's gonna-
probably upgrade the utilities, but you're not starting from complete scratch.
Where I thought you were gonna go, Ted, was, I think another option that we should look at is tearing down the medical center and building there.
I thought that came up. I thought
You
ELS was
did.
gonna look at two different options for us. One, doing it just to rebuild it, and the other one was level it and go back up
I
again.
didn't hear.
So
Jeff
is
say
that the case, or?
They looked at some modular option over there, modular building option. I don't have the exact dollar figure, but I think it was still in the same realm of about 18 million. The main challenge with the medical center is you don't have revenue from selling the medical center.
Right.
So you have to come up with and be able to justify.
But there's value to
Yes.
keeping that
Yeah.
site
You have
with the
ongoing,
bank.
I think we
Well,
need
with
to
the bank, I think we
answer
need
that
to really
question.
understand the debt capacity
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's not really an ELS thing. But
No,
I think that's a primary.
Yep, that's a big,
Part
big
of
thing
this
we have to
study. I mean,
identify.
we really need to get our head around that first, I think, before we even look at some of these other options.
Yeah.
Without the medical center there for us to loan against, the next, a project that probably has to be looked at long after I'm off the board, but we have the hillside area of that building is 65 years old, and and we're kind of holding it together a little bit. That's not gonna be an inexpensive project to redo. And so that's gonna come up for someone else down the line, and if we don't have the medical building as a resource by then to be able to tap into, how do we manage something like that?
So that's part of the analysis that we need, but if you think about, right now we have the loans against it. So what is the capacity of that building to be
In the
collateral
future.
for any additional lending? If you do a $18 million project and have to use it for that, you don't really have any additional capacity for any future project against that property per se. So the question really is that a necessary collateral for debt? Do we need that to secure additional debt? What does that look like? I don't know the answer to that yet.
And of course, it's for a limited time period. It's just like the event center loan will be
Yeah.
paid off in what, 29?
Yeah,
and then-
First loan drops
Right.
off,
You got a
27.
27, you got a loan dropping off.
Yeah.
the rest go through, I think, 34. Something like that.
I'd have to go back to
I'd
the
have to go
October
back
financial
and
statements
look.
to see that.
A little ways.
Okay.
So other factors though,
So let's just say we decided to go with MOD area for the building. That means the selling off of the medical building. In the numbers I've seen, it doesn't look like we're gonna get a real big bang for our buck when we sell it by the time we're done with everything with it. You know, with the sale and the cost of the sale and everything. It's a lot of work for not a lot of money to be put someplace else.
I think
It's gonna-
the last estimate was if we sold it for 14 to 14.5, your gain would be about 10. 10 million,
And a new building, 2-story at,
be about 12. So a $2 million
It's not
project to sell compared to an $18 million project to sell for the same purpose.
Well, I think we need to look at this updated and broader study. And I would certainly welcome any additional information on the
I
debt.
think we need a pretty
That's
good
really-
financial analysis
Yeah.
of the various options in addition to just what David and ELS could provide us in terms of what's possible. I think we need to answer those questions of what is the capacity of the medical center? What's the value in selling it? So there's a lot of those pieces.
There's a lot of little moving parts.
There is.
But I think having updated numbers and having more information would certainly help us to, we're not gonna decide on this tomorrow.
So we'll work towards getting that component together, a little bit more about what options are at MOD, but a lot more on the whole financial picture. So we'll start there.
Will we reach beyond Mechanics Bank?
I think
That's
so.
the other thing. Well, and there's other loan options too. There's revenue pledges. I mean, there's additional types of securitization besides a building. So we should be looking at that too. Okay, anything else? Hearing none. Residents forum.
We don't have.
We have nothing. No Zoom. Okay. Then I guess we're moving on to announcing that our next meeting will be Thursday, March 15th, 10:30 here in this room. And we are officially adjourned.
2 town halls between now and then.
Yeah, it should be fun.